conference that's worth traveling to, a conference that's worth going through an 11-hour transit, a conference that's worth stopping in Istanbul and visiting some friends for 7 hours, alhamdulillah. A conference that it is my pleasure and honor to relive the legacy of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by speaking about him in this blessed month, the month of his birth, the month which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided humanity with the birth of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And it is very important for us as a community to take moments like these and reflect over them and to implement them and to also teach our children as these moments pass by. One of my teachers, he gave us a beautiful example in understanding how we should reflect over our history. And that is, he said, if you think about some of the people that you love and they are no longer with you, when you think about them and you have a memory of them, some of the first things that come to your mind are the beautiful moments you had with them. Isn't that right? Not only that, but you tie with those beautiful moments some physical realities and physical things. For example, may Allah protect all of our families. Let's say, for example, a grandparent has passed away. Their place and their sofa and chair in the house is marked and remembered. Some people, subhanAllah, I know when they pass by the sofa where their grandmother used to sit or their grandfather used to sit, they start coming into tears. Isn't that right? Or their mother or their father, or their children. They even, some, subhanAllah, who have lost, they leave their rooms like that for days, maybe even months, not having touched it, remembering them, not only that, but reflecting over maybe even their smell that they had. So that memory is ingrained in their minds. If this is the case with the most beloved of people to us, whom we may have lost, my teacher said that how can we not have the same reaction with the most beloved human being to us more than the mother that gave birth to us, more than the father that took care of us, more than the children that we care about more than anything. An-Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. How can we not have a similar kind of relationship with our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where you may remember a month goes by, a day goes by, or a gathering, for example, like the holiday seasons, and you say, well, we used to gather like this with grandma or grandfather. And now they're not with us. And you make a dua for them. But subhanAllah, how is it not that when the year passes by or the months pass by, we don't reflect in our hearts and in our minds, what did the Prophet ﷺ do on this day? What did the Prophet ﷺ go through in this month? Throughout his life. And this is one of the most powerful ways for you to reflect and make the Prophet ﷺ part of your day-to-day life. Is you go through the Islamic month and calendar and you see what happened in this month in the life of Rasulullah ﷺ. Not just Rabi al-Awwal. In fact, let me tell you something. The birth of the Prophet ﷺ itself being celebrated even on that particular day is a disagreement amongst our ulama. It's very famous, what I call the 5 M's of confusion in our community. Okay? The 5 M's of confusion. We make Islam these 5 M's. Number 1, meat. Okay? Don't come between a man and his burger. Alright? Meat is like the most major issue in Islam to some people. Right? Not that it's not, but subhanAllah, we make it as if it's a central pillar of Islam. The 6th pillar of Islam. Right? Or subhanAllah, when somebody comes and accepts Islam, what's the first thing we tell them? Eat halal chicken. Right? The 2nd M, for example, marriage. Marriage is a big issue. The 3rd M is madhabs. Which madhab you follow madhab, etc. All of that. Okay? The 4th M, moon fighting. Moon fighting, not moon sighting. We're fighting over how to fast and how not to fast. And then the last M, which is subhanAllah, becomes a contentious issue in the eyes of some people, is the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. To celebrate or to not to celebrate. And there's a disagreement amongst our ulama out of love. It's not over competition and hatred, but rather a mutual love and agreement. Even my teachers in Medina, there are those who don't say yes and those who say no. SubhanAllah. But with that being said, one of my teachers said, the same teacher, he said, SubhanAllah, No one disagrees that you cannot have feelings of remembrance and love and commemoration in this month. Just like no one can give a fatwa on your feelings about your lost loved ones. No one can give a fatwa on don't feel this way. No one said this in Islam. So the problem is we have lost a sense of sensibility with connecting with our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And another thing is that those of my teachers who partake in the celebration of a particular day, do you know what they say? They say that we in the Muslim lands like Syria or Palestine, where it is celebrated, or the vast majority of the Muslim lands, Malaysia, so forth, they say that it is actually an innovation according to us if you only celebrate one day. This is what they say. They say you have to do it at least the whole month. And you gather every weekend with your family and you reflect over the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, because none of the righteous of the previous generations celebrated only for one day. They celebrated the entire month. SubhanAllah. So our conceptualization of the life of the Prophet ﷺ is something that we need to change as well. We need to change as well. When it comes to the birth of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam and what he brought to humanity, it's something that we need to really understand what humanity was missing for it to be fulfilled in Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then you will understand its relationship with what we are missing as a society today and our need for Muhammad and Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet ﷺ in a very powerful narration that's mentioned in Al-Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ says that Allah says, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ نَظَرَ إِلَى أَهْلِ الْأَرْضِ فَمَقَتَهُمْ عَرَبَهُمْ وَعَجَمَهُمْ إِلَّا بَقَايَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. He says that the Prophet ﷺ says that before the advent of the Prophet ﷺ, the earth was such level of darkness that Allah looked down towards the people of the world, the earth, and He showed a level of disdain in what they were partaking in, what they were involved in, the darkness that they felt. Allah disdained the people of the earth, the Arab of them and the non-Arab of them, except with the exception of some people who remained sincere from the people of the book, from the previous revelation. Humanity was in a state of darkness. Prior to the advent of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, the Roman emperor annihilated the Plato Republic, destroyed every semblance of what was considered the early followers of the Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wasalam wa ala nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and destroyed many of the remnants of the followers of true faith. In 333 CE, that means 200 years prior to the birth of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, there was a council called the Council of Nicaea. This was basically like the Isna Council or the Ignamas Council of Christianity. They would meet once a year in Nicaea or Nicaea. And they would gather the heads of all of the Christian denominations and they would choose what the theology of Christianity should be, of the Christian belief should be. In that year, they decided on the divinity of Isa, that he is one of three, the Trinity. 333 CE, that's when Christianity decided the Trinity. That's over 300 years after Isa. There was a group among these people who believed still in Allah and they rejected this idea. They were slaughtered in mass. They were slaughtered in mass by a man named Arisios, who was the head of that council. And the remnants of their followers remained in their lands, hidden and hiding from this council who had now ingrained the idea of Trinity amongst Christianity. And prior to the advent of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was massive infighting then what would later become Christian factions themselves in Europe, fighting with one another. In Asia, China would be in a 250-year war plus before the advent of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which a woman became the emperor, and she had a very peculiar practice where she would publicly execute her lover. Her name was Queen Hu. And this became a form of humiliation for the Chinese. So what they did is they actually shaved her publicly and they executed her. This level of darkness that had befallen humanity. And not only that, the worst of them was none other than the society in which the Prophet ﷺ came from. In one aspect. And that aspect is, the Arabs practiced something no other human beings did at that time as a practice of society. Which was what? 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 Raise your hand. Yes. Yes, young man. Never mind. Okay. Yes. They buried their daughters alive. They buried their daughters alive, feeling that there was dishonor to have daughters. They did something humanity did not have the inhumanity to do as a people. And that is why some of the greatest of our scholars in seerah, they said this is why Allah chose them to be the recipients of guidance first. Because they did something so horrible that if these people can be saved from the darkness of disbelief and brought to the light of guidance and connection to the Lord, then anyone can believe. In fact, Sheikh Hasib, a great Indian scholar, he said in a joking manner, thank God that Islam came to the Arabs first, otherwise they would have never accepted it from anyone else. Right? That's a joke. Yeah. So what happens is, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes into this earth literally when humanity is in need of guidance. We as Muslims believe this faith is not solely to us. We as Muslims believe that this faith is a trust that has been given to us. And we are the last remnant human beings on this planet that have kept the trust of Allah. This faith is the faith that Allah, our Creator, sent to humanity from our father Adam. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. When your Lord, O Muhammad said to the angels, I will send down on this earth a Khalifa, meaning a successor, meaning someone that will come in successive generations, meaning a deputy, an authority, a representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Over what? What are they succeeding? What are they being representative of? None other than the true faith of God. The true belief. This was given down to Adam alayhi salam. And then subsequently every other messenger was given this trust. What happened? Every successive group of people did not fulfill the trust. Or the trust was lost. Or worse, they killed their prophets. وَقَتْلِهِمْ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ, as is known as in Bani Israel. They used to kill their own prophets. And successively Allah would keep sending down prophets and messengers so that the succession of humanity remains. The thing that we believe as human beings brings sanity to humanity. And that is belief in the divine. Connecting oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To understand one's purpose in this world. And to have a direct connection without intermediary, without a board of trustees, without anything, except directly to speak to God in the most pure way of worship. This was the remnants of that succession. This is what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came down to when he was brought to this earth. This was the start of that moment. Now, I want to take a small little break from that. I want to take a small little break from that for you to understand why the Prophet ﷺ is needed in our time today. The Prophet ﷺ, people searched for him their entire lives. And when they met him, they were overwhelmed that they were finally guided to Muhammad ﷺ. We live in a time in which Pew has done a study recently in the US of about 4,700 respondents. And they said that 90% of Americans, alhamdulillah, they believe in a higher being, which is surprising. You might be like, are you sure? Because I'm not on 425 or whatever the highway is, right? So 90% of Americans actually believe in a higher being. 90%. Okay, 80% believe in some level of that higher being God, and then 10% they believe in something else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In any case, that number is much less in Europe, 67% in the UK, etc. And 2/3 of the cases that are seen by psychologists and counselors for depression, 2/3 of those cases, they have been found that these cases of psychology and pathology, psychopathology that they found, are actually because of unsupported struggle for existential purpose and response in this life. People are searching and struggling for finding purpose in America. 2/3 of those cases do not have to do with medical conditions by statistics. They are existential problems. And this is why there's such a need in America to fill a spiritual void. This is by statistics. So a woman by the name of Dr. Lisa Miller, she wrote a book which is very powerful. I recommend all parents to read it. It's called The Spiritual Child. The New Science on Parenting for Health and Lifelong Thriving. Okay? You get it on Amazon, I don't get a cut, don't worry. Okay? She reported in a 20-year study that children are programmed to believe in a creator, in a higher being. She said that 40% who are taught this and taught purpose are less likely to be involved in any type of drug abuse of substances. 60% are less likely to be depressed as preteen teenagers. 80% are less likely to have dangerous or unprotected sex and have positive markers for thriving, including an increased sense of meaning and purpose and high levels of academic success. This is 80% of children. 80% in this 20-year study. And she says that only 16% are those who fall between the cracks, that don't fit this pattern, but the vast majority do. We are, she says, we are hardwired as children to believe in a Lord, to believe in a purpose. And when that is not taught to a child, it leads to what the first statistic that you mentioned. So, what is the problem? The problem is that America is facing a spiritual crisis, just like there was a spiritual crisis before the advent of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That spiritual crisis was a void in humanity for existential purpose. People did not have direction. And that is why when we see our fellow Americans, you can almost see the depression in people's faces. And they complain about it at your jobs. I can't believe I'm still doing this 9 to 5 and all these complaints. Whereas we, subhanAllah, were taught that there's a purpose behind what we're doing. And to perfect and excel for a higher purpose, a higher being. And the Prophet ﷺ emphasizes, كَتَبَ اللَّهُ إِحْسَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. So there's an entire structure of ethos and mannerisms that are within our faith, alhamdulillah. Now, with this being said, this void, when filled and when taught to children at a very young age, will help them to become wholesome human beings in a manner that is remarkable. And Lisa Miller tells the story in her own experience. She gave an experience. She said that we were blessed with a child, and this child was not our own. How can you have a child but it's not yours? Okay? They adopted it. Good, alhamdulillah. You're awake. The sisters are awake. You understand what I'm saying? They adopted a child. They adopted a child from the northernmost part of the human possible race. I don't know why they went to Siberia, but that's where they adopted a child from. And she said that this child, they named Johnny. Okay? And Johnny grew up, and when he reached an age where he started to discern and have understanding, he had one of his friends with him. One day we were driving them, they were talking in the back of the car, and then he says to me, Mommy, is it true that you are not my mother, and my name is not Miller, and I am not Jewish. They were Jewish. So, his name was Isaiah, excuse me. So Lisa Miller says that I said to Isaiah with a deep breath, don't you remember what we used to teach you? She said that we used to teach this young child for him to understand where he came from at a very young age, that he was given to us as a gift. And he was in a very long, basically, mountain path. And mommy and daddy had to go through a plane, then a train, then a boat, then, this is all true story by the way, and then they had to climb a very tall mountain until they grab Isaiah and they lift him up, and they said, until we found our golden child, Isaiah. And he said he loved that story, he wanted always to be told the story, just like kids. Until she said that Isaiah grew up, finally that story got old. Like, wait a minute, okay, there's not really a golden child sitting on top of a mountain. So then they said, we told him the story of Moses, of Musa alayhi salam, of how a mother placed a child in the river, and Allah made a promise to that mother that he kept. And that child went back to the mother that he deserved. And he would say, I am baby Moses, I am baby Moses. So in the car, I said, Isaiah, and I took a deep breath, don't you remember? Don't you remember? And then he said, oh, never mind, that's right. Meaning, I'm baby Moses, I'm baby Moses. So he says to a friend, I'm baby Moses. And the guy's like, what? What do you mean baby Moses? And he's like, oh, you don't understand, don't worry about it. So then he says, Johnny, his friend, talks to Isaiah back in, they're whispering in the back of the car, etc. And then he says to me something else, which he says I couldn't really have an answer for, which is more difficult than the first question. And she said that Isaiah said, Mommy, Johnny says someone gave me up. Why did that woman give me up? Why did that woman give me up? And this Dr. PhD, author of what she's even writing, she says, I have very good friends that have never had a good answer to this. And I took a very deep breath. And then I took another very deep breath. And before I could answer, this child responded, Isaiah. And he said, I know. God whispered in her ear and said that you were crying for me. And she said, that's when I knew how hardwired children are to believe in God. When miracles like that and understanding, if you only teach them to connect back to their purpose. If you only teach them to connect. This is a Christian woman who wrote a book of a 20-year research. And we as Muslims are more prior to understanding it. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was that fulfillment and promise of purpose in the lives of humanity. And that was in the form of a prayer. The Prophet ﷺ, he describes one day that he was sitting with his companions, and this companion by the name of Khalid ibn Ma'dan, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he turns to the Nabi ﷺ and he asks him a very beautiful and powerful question. He says, Ya Rasulullah, akhbirna an nafsik. Tell us about yourself, O Prophet. How should we introduce you? Did you know that? How many of you remember Jay Leno? Raise your hand. That's not the last. Right, so Jay Leno, as you all know, is a very famous comedian. He used to have a show here. For those of you who are too young now know how old I am. Anyway, he used to have a show where he used to do candid social experiments. He would ask people questions. One of the things he asked people in America is, can you tell me what Islam is? What is Islam? And people, they would say, oh, is that a type of car? And you're like, are you serious? And so this is after 9/11. They would ask people, what do you think it is? Somebody's like, oh, is that a drink at Starbucks? People didn't know. 1 in 5 Americans have never met a Muslim. 1 in 5 Americans. They don't know anything about our faith. So guess what? This companion is answering this question for you. Pay attention. How should we introduce you, O Messenger of Allah? How should we introduce you? Tell us about yourself.
the first thing the Prophet ﷺ said, نعم أنا دعوة أبي إبراهيم. I am the answer of the call of my father Abraham. I am the answer of the prayer of my father Abraham. What is the Prophet ﷺ doing? He's making the connection that the Prophet ﷺ is connected to all of the prophets and messengers that came with that succession of the true faith. The Prophet simply came with that true faith. And he's connected in the same line of prophets and messengers with that same belief. But not only that, he said something further. He is a son of Abraham. He is a son of Abraham. As the Prophet ﷺ said, all of the prophets are brothers with different mothers, meaning they all have paternal lineage. And he then said, وَبُشْرَى عِيسَى. And Isa, Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, Jesus not his name, but anyway, Isa alayhi salam, he spoke about me. He spoke about me. And these two show people that within Islam, you're not changing your religion. You're altering it. You're altering your faith to true faith. You're not changing your faith. You're altering it to what is true. And a lot of Christian people and Jewish people don't understand this and don't know this. With that being said, the Prophet was, ﷺ, when he said, I was the answer of the call of my father, Ibrahim. What is this and how does this lead to the birth of the Prophet ﷺ? I will tell you now. The Prophet ﷺ, in the Meccan period, as we all know, went through incredible difficulty and hardship. Incredible difficulty and hardship. While that difficulty and hardship is taking place, this is Islamophobia at another level. You want to talk about Muslim bans? No, that's nothing, right, compared to what's happening there. The Prophet ﷺ, while he's going through this difficulty and his people are being tortured and punished, in that moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to him Surah Ibrahim. Surah Ibrahim. Abraham. And in that chapter of the Quran, he tells him a story of where he came from. And the miraculous birth of An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What is the story? So again, this is a story within a story. Inception. Hello, Inception? Let's stop. The point being is, a story within a story. While the context of Mecca, torture, hardship, punishment, etc., I want you to listen to in that context. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about all the favors that are given to humanity. And all the favors that are given to believers for having believed. وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَظَلُومٌ كَفَّارٌ. And He gave you all that you asked of Him. And if you were to count the favors of Allah, you could not enumerate them. Mankind is certainly most unjust and ungrateful. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the greatest blessing of them all was you, Muhammad. You were the greatest blessing. They asked for everything, but we gave humanity you as the guidance and light that they need to thank Allah for. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا وَاجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَ أَن نَّعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامَ رَبِّ إِنَّهُنَّ أَضْلَلْنَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ فَمَن تَبِعَنِي فَإِنَّهُ مِنِّي وَمَنْ عَصَانِي فَإِنَّكَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِن ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِندَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and what mentioned, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this blessing, you, that we gave to humanity. When your father Ibrahim made a dua, when did he make this dua? I'll tell you. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's father Ibrahim was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to leave Palestine and leave Iraq. and to come to a valley known as the Valley of Mecca. He came there with who? Who did he come with? Hajar and their newborn child Ismail. When they got to this valley, what did Allah command Ibrahim to do? Leave, go back. To normative human logic, this is insanity. This makes absolutely no sense. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell Ibrahim, go all the way in a 1-month journey until you reach a very treacherous land between mountains? And when you get to those mountains, in the middle of that entire mountains, now the mountains of hotels in Mecca, right? In the middle of that is the valley known as the Sacred Valley. When you got there, now go back. And Ibrahim turns around. He obeys the commands of Allah. And as he turns around, his wife yelled, what any righteous wife would do, yell at her husband. That's exactly what she would do. So she yells at Ibrahim, Ya Ibrahim, are you leaving us here? Ya Ibrahim, there's nothing here. And Ibrahim ﷺ doesn't even turn around. Now subhanAllah, this was a righteous woman that understands her husband is a prophet of Allah. And that he is commanded by Allah. There's purpose and reason, divine reason for things. So she asks a very powerful question. That is one of the most powerful lessons in the life of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The context of the story is what? Punishment, torture, Muslim ban, right? All of those things. The Prophet is hearing the story from his mother in the Quran, where she says a very powerful sentence. What is that sentence? She says to Ibrahim, Ya Ibrahim, Allahu amaraka bihada? Did Allah command you with this, O Ibrahim? Is this from Allah or is this from you? Because if it's from you, you're in trouble. Right? But if it's from Allah, let us know. Then, and subhanAllah is giving me goosebumps. Ibrahim ﷺ turns around and says, it's from Allah. She stops in her tracks and she says, إِذَنْ لَن يُضَيِّعُنَ اللَّهُ. Then Allah will never leave us. Allah will never forsake us. Who's this story? Who's this lesson being taught to? None other than Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When some of the Sahaba started to maybe even lose hope, the one message of humanity with faith is never lose hope in the Lord who created you. Never lose hope. Allah will never forsake you. This was the most powerful lesson in the life of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by his mother, Hajar. What is that? What happens is she goes and takes care of her child. That's her role. And Ibrahim alayhi salam he turns behind the mountain, and then he's a man. He's leaving behind his family. He's a human being. What does he do? He has a sense of anxiety. And the only way he knows how to fix that anxiety is by turning to the one Lord and Creator. He turns around and he makes a dua. He raises his hands. And he says these words. He says, Oh my Lord, make this city secure. The first thing a righteous man does is he makes sure that his family are secure. Peace and tranquility and security. And keep me and my children away from worshiping idols. So after you're secure, the most important thing is that they turn to me. Then he says, these idols have led many astray. So whoever follows me, then he is of me, and whoever disobeys me, indeed you are forgiving and merciful. Then he says, Oh my Lord, look at the personal connection that Ibrahim ﷺ is teaching us how to make in dua. He says, Oh my Lord, I have settled my progeny, my family, the most beloved to me, in a vegetated-less valley, which doesn't even have any kind of grass. Nothing. There's not even water there. Barren land, uncultivated valley, near your sacred house. Oh Allah, we did all of this for one reason. Why did he go to Mecca? Do you know why? Why don't you go to Las Vegas? Why isn't Mecca in India, mashallah, right? Why isn't Mecca in, I don't know, the Amazon? Why is Mecca in Mecca? Who can tell me?
Because that's where Prophet Muhammad was born.
Good, that's where the Prophet was born, yes.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
Because it was a desert, nobody conquered it, so Allah said, here, put it in the middle of the desert, right? This is the foundation of the Kaaba. There's a deeper reason than the Kaaba is there. The Kaaba, that's very good. The Kaaba is there. That's the first house of Allah's worship. There's something deeper. What is it? No, that's not the answer. Who came to Umrah with me before? Raise your hand. I mentioned this to you. Because there is nothing for you from this world and material gain in Mecca. The only thing you can take from Mecca is you're nearest to God. That's the only thing you can take from it. This place, this land has been established for what? Connection to the Lord and divine. There's nothing, everything in human existence that you need to survive needs to be shipped into Mecca, except the most essential thing in humanity, which is water. Water is given by Allah. And that water in that city is the only place on earth where water can come from volcanic rock. Ask hydrogeologists. Okay? So the most essential thing to human life is what? Water? God gives you that even. And not only that, but it's also a deep message. If God can give you the most essential thing to human existence, which is a testament to the miraculous nature of that city itself, a never-ending sprint, then how can Allah not fulfill the void? That is the spiritual void that many of us face, and not giving you the most essential item to human existence, which is connection to the divine. This is why the Prophet ﷺ and his family was settled there. And guess what? From that young child, Ismail, a tribe comes and settles in that area from Yemen. And that itself has another story. The entire kingdom, called the Himyari kingdom, is destroyed because of their arrogance in Yemen, the Yemeni kingdom. And this kingdom is destroyed by a flood that's mentioned in the Quran called the flood of Arim. Because of their arrogance, their entire kingdom is destroyed by floods. So what happens? They disperse. They disperse to all of Arabia. Some of these tribes settle in a city known as Yathrib. What's another name for Yathrib? Medina. Some of them settle in the north. Some of them settle in Mecca. And they are none other than what would be Quraysh. They settle there. They find Hajar, who has now found the water of Zamzam. When they gather around her, this is the tribe of Jurhum, which will later become Quraysh. And they ask her, can we have some water? And she says, nope, it's my water. But subhanAllah, they respected her. They said, let's settle in, maybe she'll give us some water. How much she gave them water? Right? So she gave them some water. When she gave them that water, it is what made that city become established. And Ismail grows up and what is he? Is he Palestinian or what is he? What's Ismail? What's his ethnicity? He's from Baltimore, he's a Ravens fan? What's his ethnicity?
Iraqi originally, but they
good. He's Babylonian, he's not Arab. Ismail is not Arab. Ismail marries from among the Arabs, learns Arabic, and that is how the lineage of Quraysh comes from. And in the progeny of Ismail, who settles there, with the people the Arabs that they intermixed. Quraysh tribes were formed from the progeny of Ismail, and that is when the Prophet ﷺ was born, from the lineage of Ismail. How Allah brought all of this together. So when the Prophet ﷺ was born, it was in Rabi al-Awwal. Scholars have over 5 different opinions of which exact date. The 9th, the 2nd, the 8th, the 10th, or the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal. Right before the moment of dawn. And the mother of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to see dreams that light came from her womb that spread to the east and the west. And this light was so fierce that it pierced the castles of the 2 largest empires in the world and destroyed them. The Persian Sassanid Empire and the Roman Byzantine Empire. And she said that this light completely covered all of the world. And she said that when the Prophet ﷺ was born, she did not feel any kind of pregnancy pain. And literally, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was born, in that house, in the darkness of the night, light came from her womb. This is an authentic hadith that's narrated that the entire room was illuminated when the Prophet ﷺ came to this world, and that is the light that extinguished the darkness in the lives of humanity. The light that we are searching for still. The light that America needs. As our great scholar and Imam and Sheikh Malcolm X rahimahullah said, there's no one that needs Islam more than America. He said, I believe that the problems of America will be solved if they only know Islam. Because the problems of the systemic issues that we face can only be solved with a religion such as this faith. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to truly embody, understand the blessing of the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, and providing the spiritual solution for the void that we as Americans feel, and also translate that to our children and our communities, inshallah. Wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.